Good morning. I'm about to make another mug of tea and wanted to have a little chat with you because I've seen a couple of headlines over the last few days here in the UK that might be scaring some of you regarding retirement and income and how much is enough. And I wanted to just give my perspective on it. By the way, if you're new here, my name is Julia. I'm 58, soon to be 59. I live in the UK. I am going through a separation at the moment and living on a very, very modest pension. But happily, I'm kind of starting over and just on a journey, on a healing journey, and on a journey to find myself. And that's what my latest videos are all about. But to get back to this rather scary headline that I've been seeing, and I've made a few notes because the BBC, in typical media fashion, the headline screaming, which I'm pretty sure is designed to instill fear into people. The headline says that 3/4 of us are not on course to save enough for a moderate lifestyle in retirement. Don't know if any of you have seen that. I saw the headline and obviously wanted to see exactly what they mean by that. While I was researching that, I have discovered a reasonably useful website, which I believe these headlines are taken from. And if you haven't seen it already, it might be worth a look at. It's called the retirementlivingstandards.org.uk. I will put it in the comment section. And it's essentially I think it's an independent body, and they've worked with the University of Loughborough. Now, this is obviously only relevant to people in the UK, but it might be interesting for people in other countries because this website has looked at, or rather this body has looked at sort of real people to work out what is considered sort of 3 levels of income that you would need for retirement. And the 3 different levels are minimum, moderate and comfortable. Now, the headlines in the BBC have of course taken the scariest aspect, and they are looking at the moderate income. And apparently 3/4 of us are not going to have enough to have a moderate income. And of course that's quite scary. And I myself am not at the moderate income at the moment, and yet here I am, all retired. So having gone over to the Retirement Living Standards website, let's look at the 3 levels, and what they are saying is these are the estimate costs of retirement, not income. So minimum, let's look at the minimum ones. For one person, so that's me, the minimum income requirement is £13,900. If you're a 2-person household, the minimum requirement is 22,500. And I think what they're looking at, that's the money they would suggest for a lifestyle to pay for your bills, assuming you've already paid off your house. This doesn't include mortgage or rent. I think it's 1 week holiday in the UK per year, groceries, and just really the bare minimum of life. Now, the moderate income, which is what the BBC headline was, 3/4 of enough are not going to hit the moderate. Now, what do you think of this? The moderate income suggestions are for one person, 32,700 a year. For a 2-person household, 45,400. Now, my first impression on seeing these numbers are that for the 1 person minimum, 13,900, I am not even making that at the moment. So what are these BBC headlines actually screaming about? They're screaming that 3/4 of enough are not going to have 32,700 to live a comfortable life. Now, to go back to my example, as I've said, I'm not even on the minimum at the moment. My income comes from a small NHS pension that I took early at the age of 56, and some income that I get from my social media channels. I've got 2 YouTube channels and 1 TikTok. And together, all of those barely make the minimum for a 1-person household. Now, admittedly, I'm not paying mortgage. I'm living at my mother's house at the moment. As I said, going through a separation. Our house is going through a sale process, and then I will have enough to buy a very small house. So I still won't have a mortgage. But even I retired 3 years ago. And when I first retired, I was living in a home. We didn't have a mortgage, but we split the bills, food and bills. And I think we were paying about £500 each for the household bills, including food. And I was still contributing to that on this very meagre income. Now, interestingly, I don't get my state pension for another 8 years. When I do, it will be the full pension because I've paid enough national insurance. And even then, I'm still just in the minimum threshold. I'm not hitting the moderate. So do these headlines in the media scare me? Do they scare you? Is anyone looking at these? And if you're not retired and you're thinking about, can I afford it? Maybe you've seen these headlines and thought, oh my God, no, I can't. So I next want to talk about my perspective on, I've done a video similar to this on how much is enough, but I wanted to, in view of seeing these headlines, talk about it a little bit more, because I'm nervous that some of you are going to put off retirement now after seeing these headlines. So I'm going to talk about what my thoughts are. I'm going to go in the living room as we usually do. Here we are, back on my comfy sofa. Now I want to put it out there. Obviously I'm not giving pension advice. I'm not qualified whatsoever, but I can speak from my experience living on a very modest income. And I think that's proof, because I'm not hitting currently, I'm not hitting the minimum. I've got another 8 years before I get my state pension. And as I've alluded to previously, I've explained my income from pension and social media, but I do have savings, and I built those up during my working years. And also I did have a critical illness payment when I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I've been dipping into my savings to cover things like buying my camper van, maintaining it, and anything which my income doesn't cover. And in all honesty, most months I'm dipping into my savings. And the reason for that is because I do not want to live like a hermit. And as you will know from my recent video, I still enjoy getting out, exploring the world. This is something I'm absolutely intent on doing, is following my curiosity. Little trips, just come back from a train and overnight stay in Coventry. So yes, I'm dipping into savings. And I do have another pension pot that is just sitting there at the moment. But again, that is for emergency bills. And I haven't really dipped into that at the moment, not to say that I wouldn't. So to go back to these screaming headlines, and I'm pretty sure it's meant to make us all very, very fearful. I know we've all got different expectations about what retirement looks like. Depends if you've got golf club fees, if you love exotic holidays. I'm only talking from my perspective. We've all got different expectations, and I know some people, I have heard people I know have said they could not retire on £30,000. I do find that staggering. I don't know whether they assume that that's no savings and they need that income. But for me, that income is a very generous income to live on. I am, despite all the horrible things that have happened since I gave up work with the breast cancer diagnosis and the death of my sister, the stress, trying to keep my mother at home, going through a marriage breakdown, I am still, at the moment, enjoying life enormously. My mother is now in a care home, and as you might have seen on the last video, I'm still enjoying, and I fully intend to enjoy, a lifestyle where I get out and follow my curiosity. I don't wish to have big, expensive, all-inclusive holidays any longer. That's not really what I want. I am really enjoying the modest lifestyle. Modest in my eyes, so some of you might think it's quite extravagant, the fact that I go away and I want to go away. And I think the message I want to give today is, I know from the comments there are many of you who are on the verge of retirement and thinking, maybe seeing these headlines, well, I'd better stay working another few years. And I suppose I was in that mentality before my mother became so, her illness became so unmanageable. I left my corporate career after the breast cancer during COVID, etc. And I did go back to work part-time. And although I had this very healthy savings bank, I hadn't taken out my NHS pension at that stage. And I did go back part-time to minimum wage jobs, mainly because of fear that I was not going to have enough money and that I wanted to protect my savings. And the jobs were okay, but as I've said before, they took up time. And what I'm intending and what I'm working on now is not having a boss, not having to turn up on someone else's agenda to do a job that brings money in, yes, but doesn't bring me fulfillment. And I know some of you have jobs that you love, and like, why would you give it up? If that is the case, keep doing it. But for me, I wasn't enjoying those jobs and I felt a bit robbed of time. And bearing in mind I'd had that breast cancer diagnosis, I didn't know at that time about my sister's untimely death. But I've learned since, life for me now is about enjoyment and feeling satisfied more than chasing the next big thing. And that's what I'm trying to show on the videos I make, is about how I do enjoy my life. I've got my camper van, I'm going off again from tomorrow for another little outing. And so I've got a fixed amount of savings, my pension, as I've just alluded to, but I am trying to build up my income generation through social media. I don't class that as work, I class that as something that I enjoy doing. For me, retirement meant leaving the corporate world, yes, but also, as I've said, giving my time for someone else's business. I would rather invest my time and energy into building what I'm doing on social media. I'm trying to live authentically. I am still on this journey of finding myself. I'm really embracing the single life. I've had a few comments of, oh, you'll meet someone. Well, I'm not just saying I'm single to make anyone feel sorry for me, because right now I'm, as I keep saying, intentionally single. I've been through a number of marriage breakdowns. The last one happened in the last 12 months, and I have genuinely no wish for another relationship. I don't know if that's a lifelong thing. I can only say how I feel now. The reason for that is because I'm still discovering me. I think there's a lot of us out there. I know from the comments I'm reading, the messages I'm getting, there's a lot of us who have devoted lives to bringing up children, to doing the jobs, to being married and all of that. And somewhere along the line, we have lost ourselves. And I know that's how I feel. I feel I've completely abandoned myself. And this is the opportunity, this wonderful retired, I'll put it in inverted commas because I am still looking at building the income, but it's self-generated and it's very much pursuing things I'm interested in. And as part of that income generation journey, I am living more authentically than I ever have. I'm leaning into the curiosity. There's so many things I'm curious about, and one of those is about how I can live going forwards in a more sustainable way. And I don't just mean about the eco side, I mean living in a way that is a little bit more freedom, and it might involve not buying bricks and mortar. Probably will, because as so many of you have wisely said, it's good to have a front door key, and I get that, I really do. But I suppose I'm just enjoying this time that I feel I've got this time. I'm living at mum's house at the moment. Before I do buy another house, I want to use the camper van I have, the interest in travel that I have, to explore other ways. And that's why I'm keen to see people who live on narrow boats or other people who live in vans, just other lifestyles. And I want to document it and put it on this channel and talk about it and see if there are other ways. I've really got no fixed idea at the moment. And I'm hoping many of you will follow along and enjoy the journey. I'd be interested to hear in the comments what you think of these suggested incomes, and whether you think 32,000 for a one-person household is not enough to live on. I do have a sort of a view on media. I do feel that it is, I probably not maliciously, but I do feel that people are easier to manage and control when they are living in fear. And I do think that there is a lot of fear in the world right now. I think if you watch the news and read mainstream newspapers, probably a lot of you are living very fearfully right now. We can so easily become so fearful about living that, like, what is the point? What is the point of not leaving a job you hate because you're fearful? And I've mentioned it in some of the comments that try retirement. Let's, if you've got access, and I know it's not possible for everyone, everyone's circumstances are different. And if you are sadly still having to pay rent or mortgage, then, retirement might not be an option. But if you are in a position where you can access a pension, maybe you've not even looked at if you have enough. And that was another comment that came up on one of my previous videos. Very good point. Go and see a financial advisor. Even if you've got to pay that person to give you independent advice. We did it. I think it might just give you some reassurance that you might have enough. And they will often give you a projection on different scenarios of, if you invest in this, you'll hopefully live off the interest. But go and see someone who can actually reassure you maybe. And if you do decide to leave work and decide, actually, you know what, I don't like this, I'm bored, I've got nothing to do, you can always go back into the workplace. I did that myself. I went back part-time. Or you could do something, which is what I'm currently doing, which is looking at a way of generating income from something that you love. You might have a hobby, you might have a passion, you might have something you're really curious about. Why not monetize it? I believe almost anything that you are passionate about can be monetized. And I'm a living example of that. I was passionate about creating this channel. Is the very first one I started, The Importance of Being. I used to call it Imp of Be. It became all about my camper van, but my initial intention was to put out a channel, because at that time, and it was 5 years ago, I was already living on a journey of aiming to retire, live authentically, being quite spiritual, on a spiritual journey, sort of interested in manifestation. But ultimately, it was all leading down to one thing, and that was how important it is to just be. And by that, I mean be ourselves, not be panicked and stressed and getting our souls destroyed in jobs that are, soulless. It is about living more authentically, about being part of a community, about being productive, but in a way that almost is not a job, because you enjoy it and you would do it if you never got paid. And that's the journey I want to take this channel on, really, is by living this myself. And some of you watching, from what you've said in the comments, some of you were inspired to do it. And that is, that gives me a lot of joy to think that what I'm doing could inspire you. Equally, you might think what I'm saying is a load of rubbish, and I've had some of those comments as well. That's fine. It's still engagement at the end of the day. You don't all have to agree with me. My content isn't going to resonate with many people. That's fine. But I do hope that YouTube algorithm will get my videos out where they're meant to be, and that I will accumulate more and more of you who are enjoying this. And I say enjoying, and I mean it, enjoying this retirement possibility. And by retirement, a lot of people are saying, well, you're not retired if you're earning income. I disagree with that. I'm retired because I'm withdrawing a pension. I'm retired from feeling the drive to keep my CV up to date, for applying for jobs, for sending my CV off and hoping I get called back for an interview, by going for the interview and tearing myself into knots to fit into the box that the employer needs me to be in. I'm done. I'm so done with all of that. I want to make an income, as I've said, but I will do it in a way that's not destroying me. And I think, even though my income is very modest right now from the social media, compared even to a minimum wage job, I feel far more satisfaction every time. Every month I get payments from 3 different sources. I feel a huge sense of satisfaction because I know that the income is coming from something that I'm doing that people are responding to. So yes, I'm going to end this video now. It's Saturday morning. I'm going away tomorrow in the camper van. I'm spending the afternoon with my grandson today. We're going to go out and have an adventure. And I think this is what my retired life, my dream retirement life, is all about. Spending some time doing purposeful things, but enjoying my family, enjoying life, going out and exploring. And I'll see you on the next video.